All right, guys. So we have a special edition of the show today in which I have a law enforcement officer with us here today to talk about the tragic shooting down in Uvalde, Texas, in which a maniac went into an elementary school and killed 19 kids and two teachers. And I know I said I wasn't going to talk about this anymore until we get some video evidence in regards to what actually happened. However, Mr. Todd Jackson reached out to me to offer his expertise in regards to his perspective on the situation and also trying to educate you guys more on active shooter situations in general and what law enforcement typically does in the situations, what is going through the minds during situations like this, the tactics that they use, things like that I think will be very, very, very educational and give you guys some perspective in regards to how these situations work. Okay, so I'm gonna try to get into this, and I don't want to make the video too long. Okay, so with that being said, I want to go ahead and introduce my guest, Mr. Todd Jackson, and I want him to explain to you guys his background so that you guys can understand his expertise when it comes to this subject matter.
Good afternoon, Greg. Thanks for having me on. My name is Todd Jackson. I'm a law enforcement officer with a Washington metropolitan area agency. Currently, I'm also a SWAT operator. I'm also a fugitive warrants investigator. Also, I'm certified as a active shooter, singular engagement active shooter instructor through the company called Raider. And I've been on multiple SWAT callouts, barricades, hostage situations, things of that sort right there. And yeah, I've been in law enforcement now for like a little over 12 years, and I've been on the team now for about a little over 9 years.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your service. And I am so happy that you reached out to come on my channel and explain this to my audience. You're really doing me a big favor. And I hope that you kind of provide some clarity to my audience in regards to how this stuff works and your perspective as a law enforcement official in regards to what you guys are thinking when these type of situations happen and the tactics that you guys use. So before we get into the details surrounding what happened in Uvalde, Texas, and that mass shooting there, I just want to talk generally about active shooter situations and how you guys handle and approach these type of situations, just to get a general understanding of law enforcement's perspective and what they do in these type of situations. So if you can shed some light on that for a few minutes for our audience, that would be great.
Cool. Yeah, so active shooter incidents are probably like the height of any type of law enforcement engagement with the public, any type of emergency response. We're trained, we're drilled in these things constantly every year through our in-service training, things like that. We really try to drill as far as what our response would be to an active shooter situation, seeing that they seem to tend to happen now with a little bit of frequency. So, I mean, that's something that's really, really drilled into us, and really, really taught to us, at large, through lots of law enforcement agencies, especially in this region where I work, being that, you have so many different types of assets here. You have, the Capitol building, you have so many government buildings, you have so many agencies and things like that. And you have a lot of schools, a lot of universities. So we have to know this and we have to get this drilled. But to answer your question, so active shooter response is basically, we were taught that any type of response to an active shooter, regardless of whoever the first one is on scene or how many officers you have on scene, you have to make entry. And what we're taught is that every single gunshot that we hear is someone's life being maimed or ending potentially. So with that in mind, that kind of makes us have a expediency posture to us, and where we have to really get in there and engage the threat. And when I mean we have to engage the threat, is that we have to go straight, direct to threat as far as where we believe that possible shooter is, based on the intel was presented to us at the time, whether it be sounds, whether it be somebody telling us where it is, or us actually visibly seeing him, etc., or him or her, etc. We have to bypass the wounded. We have to bypass the people who are bleeding out, people who are begging for our help. We have to bypass them, and we have to go straight to the shooter. And the reason being is that, as long as if we stop to actually render aid to people who we may see along the way, we are basically becoming a liability along with them. And we have to basically render the scene safe. And the only way to render that scene safe is by neutralizing any type of active shooter. And so that's the type of posture that we have to take when we respond to those types of situations. It's not anymore of let's wait for SWAT. That line of thinking went out with Columbine in the 1990s. It's no more of that right now. It's like if you're the first officer on scene, suit up, get ready, go in. And that was part of the course that I actually learned, was learning singular engagements and like movements and different tactics that you can use to actually, benefit you when it comes to that type of singular engagement. If you have multiple officers on scene, great. But everybody needs to make some type of response to that shooting scenario. And, time is always against you, and you always have to use sound tactics, and you have to make sure that you're trying to neutralize that threat so you can save lives.
Thank you. So it sounds to me like in an active shooter situation, you guys are taught to instinctively, again, run towards gunfire to try to neutralize this threat, even if you are outmanned and outgunned. So to me, let's say it's a 4v1 situation. You have to run into that.
Have to run into it. Yes, sir. So, I mean, even if it's the odds are against us, we have to make an attempt to engage at least, one shooter, two shooters. I mean, whatever we have, whatever's in front of us, we can't just sit, especially, when you add the variable that lives are being exterminated potentially, or you have hostages that have already been injured or maimed or even killed. That changes the dynamic, in every single way. And we are public safety. That's ultimately our job. Our job is not to go in there and get shot and die. Yeah. But, our job is to basically try to neutralize any type of threats that are presented to us that provide some type of harm or some type of danger to the public. And I can't think of any other scenario in which an active shooter presents that very thing by definition.
Got it. And is there any difference in regards to how you guys handle an active shooter situation? Let's just say it's a school building versus a Capitol building or a bank or something like that. Like, do the tactics vary? Let's say, I don't know, maybe a politician or, whatever is being held hostage. Like, how does things change based off the location or the assets that need to be protected or what's going on in that situation?
So the location really, unless it's something that's very, very, very drastic, that really wouldn't have any a type of impact as far as our response. We still have to go inside there. If we believe that the shooter is actually inside of a building, we have to go in there and actually neutralize them. So, it's important to, like, I know in this situation in Texas, they had to get the keys to the classroom to actually open it up. So it's really important for, officers to really look for work and try to gain some types of intel as far as like barriers we may encounter when it comes to neutralizing that suspect and gaining entry and things like that. If we need keys, if we need scan cards, if we need, anything else. But ultimately we still have to go in that building at the end of the day. Now, like, different situations present different responses. If it's a hostage situation and nobody's been injured, yes, that slows things down dramatically, because now you have to basically wait for, a crisis negotiator potentially to make contact with that person to try to see if they can negotiate for the safety of those hostages. If it's a barricade, for example, and that basically means that, the person is actually refusing to surrender, but they've basically in a position where they're basically fortified, and but there's no immediate danger to any life at all, minus the suspect and the officers that are going to be making the entry to engage the suspect. Basically, that slows everything down, because now like two important variables have been taken out of the equation, and that is innocence and the hostages. There are none present in a barricade situation. That basically means we just have to go in there and get them. And that allows us the benefit of time to actually slow things down considerably.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. I just wanted the audience to get a general understanding of, how this stuff works and what you guys are thinking and what you're supposed to do in situations like that. Now, we'll get more specifics here in regards to what happened in Uvalde, Texas. And before we get in that, I just want to play a clip for you guys to give you the latest timeline in regards to what authorities, the Texas Department, law enforcement department is saying in regards to what happened. Now, keep in mind, this stuff could change. It's probably going to change. We're just talking about this with the information that we have right now. So this stuff could change. It could be outdated tomorrow, right? Hour from now. Just keep that in mind. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll the clip.
As you know, we did get that update earlier from DPS, right? So we want to give you a clear look at the timeline that we now have. Officials have told us what happened Tuesday morning in Uvalde. As you'll see, everything happened here very quickly and at some moments here at the same time.
11:27, video shows the door that the gunman used to get inside the school. We now know it was propped open by a teacher. 11:28, the gunman crashes a vehicle into a ditch. Then, the teacher who left the door propped open runs inside the school to get a phone, but the door remained open. At the same time, two men in a nearby funeral home run to the crash scene, but turn around after the gunman starts shooting at them while running toward the school. 11:30, a 911 call about the crash and a man with a gun. 11:31, the gunman hides behind cars in the school's parking lot. That's when police arrive at the school and find a teacher at the back door, but they don't see the gunman. This is also the point when the gunman starts shooting at the school. 11:32, the gunman gets into the school, through the propped open door, turns down a hallway, and starts shooting into a classroom. Police say based on audio evidence, the gunman shot more than 100 rounds at this time. 11:35, 3 police officers entered the school through the same door the gunman used. They are followed by other officers. The first 3 officers go toward the classroom where the gunman is with the door closed, and they were shot. 11:37, another 16 rounds fired by the gunman. 11:51, more police officers arrive. 12:15, the Border Patrol Tactical Unit arrives. 12:21, the gunman starts shooting again, possibly at the door of the classroom he's in. 12:50, police use a key they got from the school janitor. They open the classroom door and kill the gunman.
All right, guys. So now that we have a breakdown of the timeline situation here, I'm going to get straight to kind of what a lot of people are having questions about in regards to law enforcement's response. Okay. Apparently, the suspect walked into the school and made entry at 11:33. Okay. Apparently, there was no school resource officer there. He drove past the suspect while the suspect was still at his vehicle. Apparently, he was hiding behind his vehicle or something. They said that the school resource officer went to the school. However, I mean, the dude just kind of disappeared. It seems like he was not there when the guy was actually there. So I don't know what really happened to him. But, you know, the part that a lot of people focusing on is when the police officers actually went into the school, which is at 11:35 a.m. And there was apparently 3 police officers and a deputy entered the school. The 3 police officers went to the door in which the shooter at that point had closed the door. He was in a classroom full of students. There was 2 doors to, I guess, 2 classrooms that seemed like they may have been joined together or something like that. But there were 2 doors there, and they went to one of the doors and they received gunshot wounds, grazing wounds from the door. Now, at that point, I just want you to kind of explain in a normal situation. Again, we're not really trying to, get on these officers here in this video. I'm not trying to really play Monday morning quarterback too much. I just want to know, from your perspective, in a normal situation, what do you do at that point? Because a lot of people, and their criticism is after these officers got shot, it almost seemed like they just kind of gave up on trying to actually get into the room, even though there were 911 calls that were actively coming in from children that were stuck inside of these rooms, indicating that there were kids still alive. Obviously, some kids were dead, unfortunately. But I just want to know, from your perspective, in a normal situation, what do you do there? What is going through these officers' minds? What is the protocol?
So if you're trying, basically, when it comes to this type of situation right here, when we make entry into a structure, some type of building, any type of real estate that we gain, we don't want to give it up. We don't want to have to retake it. So we keep it. Whether that be classrooms, whether that be a portion of a hallway, everything is done from that pinnacle and that apex right there. So we don't give up real estate. We want to try to keep as much real estate as we can. Now, another thing that a lot of officers are receiving nowadays, they're receiving training in general first aid and tourniquets. So we have to carry tourniquets. I know for my agency, we have to carry tourniquets on our belts and on our vests. And so, I mean, if there's ever a situation where we're receiving some type of gunfire, or one of us is wounded, we will be able to address that right then and there, as far as like trying to stop the bleeding so we can continue the mission. And the mission is, of course, is to, again, neutralize the shooter. So like these things that we're taught when it comes to first aid, active shooter response, they really feed into each other so we can continue to carry out that mission. And the mission, of course, is neutralizing the shooter. So again, I'm not trying to Monday morning quarterback these officers, and I'm not trying to second guess any of their decisions. Everybody, any type of law enforcement response, any type of law enforcement officer can tell you that any type of response and any type of action taken on the scene is based on the intel and the information that we are allowed at that time. We have to make decisions based on that, and it could be imperfect, it could be perfect information, but we have to we have to posture ourselves and we have to orient ourselves based on that information that we're receiving, whether it be through the dispatcher, whether it be through innocents that are like around us, whether it be through what we hear, what we see. So many different factors, and we have to make them at a moment's notice. So I'm not sure what these officers what information they were privy to at that time that led to their actions. However, our training tells us that, if you are actually hit, you have the tools to actually kind of not heal yourself, but kind of attend to yourself so you can continue the mission. And the mission, of course, in an active shooter situation is very paramount as far as neutralizing the shooter.
Got it. So it sounds to me at that point, ideally what would happen is that these officers would continue trying to neutralize the shooter, despite being hit. Now, in regards to time, apparently there was more gunfire. Okay, at 11:51, the FBI and police sergeant arrived, and at 12:03, officers continue to arrive in the hallway. At this point, there are 19 officers inside the hallway outside the classroom. Now, you still, after that, at this same time, 12:03, 12:10, 12:13, you have students calling 911 from inside this classroom, okay? And you have 19 officers standing outside the classroom. What happens at 12:15 is where it gets kind of interesting, is that apparently members of Border Patrol tactical unit arrive, and they have the shields, right? The shields that you guys need to infiltrate this door and take out the shooter. But at that point, the officer in charge of the situation changed the situation from an active shooter situation to a barricaded subject situation. Could you kind of go into some details in regards to why somebody would make that decision? Like what facts or what situation would present where you would think that, hey, you know what, this is now not an active shooter, this is a barricaded subject situation. Could you break that down if you're comfortable with that?
Sure. Yeah. In a hypothetical situation, if you receive some type of information that all of the innocents, hostages, anybody that we need to safeguard have been evacuated from the facility, and it's just the suspect and the shooter or the suspect alone in a fortified position, then that is a barricade. Now, however, if they actually do have people in there with them that they are still actively shooting, that is still an active shooter situation. It is not a barricade, even if they fortified their position and are still killing people. That is still an active shooter situation, and you have to posture yourself accordingly. So a barricade does really allow us to considerably slow things down, because now, again, innocents are not in harm, at least in the immediate sense. They're not in harm in any type of peril. And we're allowed to really implement a lot of safeguards for ourselves and to try to deny certain types of safeguards and for the suspect, so we can kind of turn the tables to our advantage. Because whenever a suspect is actually barricaded and fortified, they have the advantage of having position on us. We have to turn that table around to where we have the advantage. And a barricade allows you to have that time to do that, considering things like breaking and raking windows, sending in a robot, pumping in gas. These are just other tools that we can use in our tool bag if it is a barricade situation. However, as it turns out, this particular situation was not a barricaded situation, and he actually was in there still, at least to the information, to the best of my knowledge, he was still in there shooting people, which qualifies as still as an active shooter. You have to stack up and go in.
Yeah. So that kind of supports what I guess we're hearing from the media, which, you know, the district police chief calling that the wrong decision. And to me, I mean, they got there at 11:35 a.m. We're talking about 12:15 p.m. where they actually changed it to a barricaded subject situation. I'm sitting thinking, shouldn't they be trying to break down the door and get in there in between, you know, that 30 minutes or so, 45 minutes or so in which they got there and they changed it to a barricade subject situation? Like, what were they doing in between that time? Because I can understand if you change it to a barricaded subject situation, after that, you can, you know, not trying to break down door, whatever. But before that, you know, do you guys, if you don't have the tactical shields or whatever, do you guys just not try to break down the door? Like, even if you don't have the key, like how does that work?
So every single situation presents a unique set of variables. And in this particular situation, I believe they gained access to the door through the janitor's keys.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, you have to look at what you have in front of you. It's a school. Somebody's going to have access to these doors. There's got to be a master key out there somewhere. So while we're in here actually trying to address the situation, we're the proverbial tip of the spear. Somebody else, again, is out there trying to get these assets in place so we can do our job and go in here and neutralize this person. But until then, yes, we're radioing up. Hey, listen, I need a ram. I need a, you know, I'm saying some type of like a, you know, a sledgehammer. I need something in place so I can get past this door. He's got this door in front of me, and there's, you know, there's nothing I can do. Or you try to, again, think tactically and think outside the box. What is another way that I can get in there safely? You know, if it's through a window, you know what I'm saying? Things like that. So it's just like every situation provides this unique set of variables, but it's like you got to be able to think through these things and problem solve to try to get the problem actually, again, solved. So yeah, I mean, that's just the way that it happens. And, you know, these situations occur and they hand us, you know, a big S sandwich, but, you know, we just have to be able to, you know, we have to be able to adapt and overcome.
Got it. So
of course, in the safest way possible, of course, to you know what I'm saying, to the citizenry and to ourselves as well.
Got it. So at 12:51, that's when the officers actually made entry using the master key. Okay, and then they fatally shot the suspect. And again, my question is, it's like, do you need the key? Like, do the police not have the ability to actually break down that door? Do you guys not have, I guess, the RAM on site and nobody, like, did they attempt, like, my question is, do you not attempt to break down the door, or is it just one of those things where you have to have a key? Like, I'm not exactly sure, you know, how this works in regards to, I know, you know, if you are doing, you know, SWAT, or, you know, you are, you know, doing a search warrant or whatever, right? No knock warrant. You guys can just break down and open up doors. I don't understand why that didn't happen in this situation.
Well, see, yeah, I mean, the thing is, I mean, I'm sure you've been in a public school before. You know, those doors, they look like they weigh 2 tons. They're like made of metal and everything, and rightfully so. I mean, they have to protect the people that are the precious treasure that's inside. So, I mean, there's a lot of factors that are like that go into as far as, again, simply opening a door in a tactical situation. Does it swing outward? Does it swing inward? Where are the hinges? Where's the knob? You know, things like that. Is it made of wood? Is it attached to a frame? Is it made of metal? You know, things like that. Is it made of glass? So there's so many variables that you have to consider in just opening a door in a SWAT situation, much less an active shooter situation. Now, to answer your question as far as why didn't they have those, or if they had those tools on scene, or do we just carry that? I mean, the answer is simply no, we don't carry those. I mean, it's just regular patrol officers that responded to that scene. They're not going to have that type of equipment, but, you know, at the same time, they still have to go in there and try to get the job done and try to get those assets on scene, because once the active shooter situation occurs, you better believe that everybody in a you know, 5 mile, 10 mile radius is racing to that scene. And so somebody's going to come with something. So that to you know, address that situation. And then, you know, again, it's like you said, it's a public school. Somebody's going to have the key. Someone has to have the key. So it's just thinking about that and being able to think outside the box and not limit yourself to, oh, I have to get past this door and I have to kick it. No, you don't. You know, you had a key, or there's a ram on site, or there's a sledgehammer, or there's a pry bar, or something like that. You know, you just kind of like got to really think with the tools that you have at the time, and make assessments based off of that.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. I mean, because to me, the law enforcement explanation of this, I just feel like it kind of seems like, well, why didn't you get this master key, 30, 40 minutes beforehand, right? Like, were you trying to actively open the door? Because to me, they could have easily just passed it off as, well, we didn't have a key in this. We couldn't break down this door. We didn't have the tools necessarily to break down the door. But that doesn't necessarily seem like a narrative that they're even putting forward here. It just kind of seemed like, to me, it was like, well, we waited to actually go in, even though we could have went in, and then we went to the janitor and got the key when we were actually ready. That's what it sounds like. But, I don't know. I mean, I can imagine that maybe the door, maybe they could have broke it down. I have no clue. Right. So I'm not trying to really speculate too much about that. I think you've given me the information that the audience needs to kind of understand, what goes into this stuff from a tactical standpoint. We really probably won't really know the truth. But one thing I do want to touch on beforehand, just to kind of, before we leave, so that, the audience kind of understand this too as well, is that there was a very, very controversial scene outside of the school where you had police officers outside of the school, holding down parents. In some cases, they had tasers out. Reports are that they tasered a parents that were trying to go into the school and rescue their children. Now, I want your insight in regards to how that works, okay? Were they setting up a perimeter? Now that we know that officers were inside, 19 of which, allegedly, according to the current timeline, which could change. But now that we know that, explain to us what that situation might have been in regards to the perimeter and the parents and what the police might have been thinking and doing at that point.
So yes, I mean, so any type of situation like this, especially when it comes to a barricaded situation, perimeter is very, very important, because the perimeter is the line that separates the people who need to be in there from the people who don't need to be in there. And so it's like, if you have an active shooter situation, a perimeter is just as equally important, because you still have a person, any person that's outside can potentially become a victim of that shooter. And as the shooter did approach the school, he did shoot inside, and I believe there are reports that he actually shot from the outside. I mean, from the inside to outside. So I mean, everybody out there is potentially in danger, still just being on a hot scene like that. So a perimeter control is very, very important. And not every single officer is going to have a chance to get in there and do work. Some officers are needed in a different aspect. I'm not sure exactly at what time in the timeline this video, I know what video you're talking about, occurred. But there are officers that are needed for perimeter security. And if parents are trying to breach that perimeter to go inside, that's our job, is to safeguard the public. You are negating me from safeguarding the public, which is in this case this person who's trying to breach my perimeter line. And if I have to basically, do what I have to do to keep you out of there, to save you from yourself, essentially, then that's what I need to do. Perimeter control is just as equally important as the person who's actually in there trying to neutralize the suspect or the shooter. So, I mean, perimeter control is just equally important. And I'm not sure exactly, like I said, at what point in time this actually occurred in the timeline, but not every single officer is going to be able to go inside there and deal with this. Some are needed outside to, again, coordinate assets, do crowd control, do perimeter work, set up a command post. I mean, not everybody's going to be able to do one job all the time, throughout the entire time on scene for the incident.
Got it. So we're coming to the end of this interview. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on and explaining and breaking this down for my audience, because, I'm not an expert. I have family members that are in law enforcement, and there's only so much I can really understand. And I thank you so much for offering your expertise to my audience so that they can understand and get a better grasp of the situation and police tactics and, how this situation kind of unfolded and what you guys do normally when stuff like this happens. And, it is unfortunate for tragedies like this to happen in this country, but I think it is important for us to have conversations about this stuff and to understand, how this stuff works so that, when things like this happen again, which unfortunately in this country, it seems that it happens too much, we can get a better kind of, understanding and grasp of, how things unfold and why they unfolded. So with that being said, only got 3 minutes left. If you want to say any, last words or whatever for the audience, feel free to do so. The time is yours.
So yeah, Greg, the world of policing is always changing. It's always changing. no one single year or group of years or decades or whatever is going to be the same in policing, because there's unique challenges that are presented every single year. I mean, you know, a long time ago, we didn't have to worry about the public filming us. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that have to change, you know, when it comes to our responses to public engagements and things like that. You know, again, like I said, you know, I use the example of Columbine. That back then, the actual response, the standard operating procedure, I guess, just about nationwide was wait for SWAT. Well, you know, me being a SWAT operator, we're not always, again, just sitting at home, you know, waiting for a situation to occur. We're out living life too. So it's going to take us time to actually get suited up to get there and everything like that, and actually get, you know, ready to address the situation based on what happens. And during that time, things are actively changing. So that again, that response again doctrine went out the window in the 1990s, and I'm sure within the next 10 years something else is going to change, and is going to change the way that we police. So the world of policing in America is always changing, and again, like I said, you know, we have to change with it. It's our responsibility to do that, and it's also our responsibility to learn the lessons of this incident right here, because if people who are responsible for mistakes that are made do not own up to those mistakes and don't share those mistakes and air those mistakes, then we can never learn from them, so we know not to do them. So they're robbing us of an opportunity to actually get better. So I mean, again, I saw the DPS commissioner talking, and I completely loved when he said we made a mistake, or that person made a mistake, because that was him owning up to it. Mm-hmm. And you know, we're not perfect, we're not robots out here, but you know, every time, every day it's changing, every year it's changing, and we need to learn the lessons that these engagements teach us, so we can give it to the future officers, so they can safeguard the public better and more efficiently.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Just so you guys know, Taj, we talk on Instagram, and we go back and forth about, you know, these situations that happen with police. Sometimes he disagrees with me, you know, sometimes he agrees with me, but regardless of our disagreements, you know, obviously, you know, we're cool, you know what I'm saying? And that's how, you know, we're supposed to have conversations in this country. So with that being said, I hope you guys found this to be informative. Let me know what you guys think, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.